Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Broken Dice bringing you turn 4 of my Rome and Iberia battle with the Iberian tribe, the Laietani and their allies. Um, Again, referencing this campaign, I suggest you go back and look at the video I made on how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it, and give that intro video, and then you go back and check some of the results, and that'll kind of catch you up real quick to where we're at right now. So let's get into this battle report. Iberian orders phase. Okay, allies come onto the table. From the last unit from a broken division is moving off the table on the Iberian left. This leaves these Roman forces unengaged, and so they will be able to freely move in their turn. Here we have a look at some of the allied tribes that have come onto the table. And actually, this cavalry unit from the last turn was forced back in disorder, while the Scutari on the left there are also moved back in disorder. Okay, this gives you, oh, and they're shaken as well, actually, that unit of Scutari. So let's take a look over here on the left of the photo. You can see those units that had, this is a photo probably, how did they get there? Huh. I don't know. I put a photo in here that's kind of a little bit out of sequence, but you can see where the Romans have moved to. You can kind of see, because most of the, I'm going to tell you right away that the most of the big action is going to be that combat in the kind of the top left between the Romans and the Scutari, and then all the combat on the right of the picture. Okay, so in the orders phase, the Allied commander has issued his troops an order to charge in to support or make contact with the Romans. And the cavalry at the bottom here, you can see from that big brown arrow, they make it into able to support the Celt Iberians fighting the 5th cohort. And at the top, we have a unit of Scutari that have been able to move far enough forward that they clear that cavalry and are able to engage with some shooting against the 6th cohort, who have taken 5 damage. They're 1 damage away from becoming shaken, and that would be a very big deal at this stage of the game. Iberian shooting phase, and as it says, it was worthless. They didn't do anything. Nothing. Look at, they're sitting there with 5 damage. 1 more, they're shaken. They wouldn't be able to do anything next turn. They'd be a sitting duck. But no, they did nothing. All right, Iberian combat phase. This is it. This one's been going on since like turn 2, and I can only just sing the praises of these Celt Iberian Scutari. They've done a stellar job. Now the dice rolling was exceptional for them and abysmal for the Romans, but I've never seen this happen before. So this is a nice little close-up of that combat. Another little close-up of that combat. And here, really close in on that combat. All right, here we go. This is a big one. This is a big one. Because because of what I did the last turn, there was an explanation in there, but basically what I did was, because this 2nd cohort was in support of the 3rd cohort that broke last turn, and these guys did not break, but I rolled a dice to try to see kind of what would happen. Would the Scutari sit back and kind of reorganize, or would they continue the pressure and to attack? And I rolled a dice and they continued to attack. So I moved them into combat with this 2nd cohort. But it didn't feel right to penalize the Romans too much by being charged and that stuff. So what I decided to do was I gave bonuses to both. These Romans can use their pilum, and the Scutari can get their charge bonus. And so we both have a big fight on their hands. You can see that both units are shaken in this combat. So yeah, it's going to be pretty bad. The results, that is, because both did damage to each other, but because they're both shaken, they both have to test, and they both failed and left the table. Now this leaves the Scutari that were in support along with their commander. Yeah, so we have to roll for them and see what happens for them, and they broke as well. So one of the major combat actions throughout this entire game has finally come to a conclusion, and it's unsatisfactory for both sides, um, and much more for the Romans, I think, because those two units of Scutari actually destroyed 3 Roman cohorts. And we all know it's a game and there's dice involved and stuff, and I don't fudge anything. I mean, I take whatever I roll, and that's what you hear. Um, I just thought it was odd that the Scutari did so well in the beginning, and then it finally comes down to this, and boom, they're off the table. But again, with those other units moving towards their flank, they weren't going to be in the game after turn 4 anyway, because they were already shaken. They were going to be charged, and it was not going to go well for them anyway. So here we are on the other side of the table in the Iberian combat phase. This will be with the 6th and the 5th cohorts. The 5th cohort. I love this picture. You'll see it a couple of more times. But anyway, okay, it's just a struggle. It's just a struggle. The Romans win the combat by 1, basically. Both of them, neither rolled very well, but each, let's see, the Romans did 2 points of damage. The Celto-Iberians did 1 point of damage, even with re-rolls and support. It was just abysmal dice rolling. So they both have to test because they both are shaken. And again, this is where this horrible comes into play. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm a little ahead of myself. Sorry. Spoiler alert. But anyway, just the Celto-Iberians are shaken. But so they have to test, and they rolled really high, and so they stayed right there, and were able to continue the fight. Now, wait a minute. I think I've got this in my notes. They're shaken and they take a test. Yes, yes, here we go. Now I'm caught up to my my notes, and my pictures are now all caught up. Sorry. But anyway, so the Romans took enough damage, they became shaken and disordered, okay, by their roll. The Celto-Iberians, even though they lost the combat, they rolled high enough on the break test table that they held their ground in good order. Oh, let's get back to the Romans. Even though they won, they had the test. So I had a choice to make. I rolled a 5, and on the chart, you can retreat in good order, or you can hold your ground and be disordered. Well, if you look behind the Romans, they can't retreat into an enemy unit. But that enemy unit is also shaken and disordered. So I thought to myself, what would be appropriate? It would just be like this mass chaos of people running about, the sky's falling, and nobody able to do anything to anyone. Or would the Romans show their fortitude and their training and stay there regardless of the situation. So I decided to roll a dice. And if they retreated, they stayed in, well, they wouldn't have been in good order because they were disordered before. So I rolled the dice and they held their ground disordered, which I think for other reasonings, moving through an enemy unit and all that kind of stuff, I'd had to kind of come up with some sort of rationale or break the unit as it was, but I decided to roll the dice, and there you go. Now for the leaders, we had to roll for them as well because they added their attacks into the combat. The Roman commander passed. He's the guy there with the cloak on. And the Iberian commander, who is the second sub-commander, he dies as well. So that unit is going to be on their, that division is going to be on their third sub-commander, and he's going to be let's see, okay, that's a second one. He was a 7, so the next guy is a 6 leadership. So good luck getting anything done with that. Romans order phase, turn 4. Get my notes caught up here. Yeah. Okay. The Roman general. The cavalry is part of his division, but the skirmishers and the first cohort are not. So he issues individual orders to everyone, and he passes all of them. It's just, okay, that's his shtick then. He passes orders. And here's a close-up. I like some of these little close-up pictures. All right, on the other end of the battlefield, the 6th cohort charges the Scutari that, well, they actually have very noodly arms because they couldn't do a single point of damage to them in the shooting, so now they get to take a Roman cohort full in the face. Okay. I've got my pages mixed up. All right. And now we go into the combat phase. And boy, yeah, I didn't do this one very well. This combat just seemed kind of anticlimactic. It was like a point here, a point there, just enough to do damage. And then I had to create another sub-commander for this division of the Roman army. This is their third division. He's a level 5 division commander. So, I mean, he is about as bad as you can get. He is as low level as you can get for these guys. Yeah. Okay, yeah, the 6th cohort fighting against these Iberians. They did 4 damage. The Romans won by 3 because the Iberians did 1 point of damage. The Iberians have to take a break test, obviously. They rolled an 11, and minus the 3, they got an 8, so they held their ground without penalty. But the Romans, because they took that 1 point of damage, now become shaken and have to test. So they test, and I rolled a 5. Therefore, they the option of retreating and staying in good order, which they couldn't do anyway because they were already disordered. No, they weren't disordered yet. I decided to stay, and then they became disordered because that's the other half of number 5, is you can either retreat in good order or stay in combat and be disordered. So retreating off the table I don't think was an option, so I left them on the table. Actually, my notes here, I actually rolled a dice on this one, and it actually stayed. If they would have fled the table, that meant that what was left of that division would have had the test, and that would have included the cavalry that's on the other end of the battlefield. So that could have been really tricky. That would have changed things dramatically. Okay, here's another aerial view. Oh, and as a note, coming up here, there was some Roman shooting at this Scutari unit, and nothing happened. Here we go. We're looking down on there. Now we're at the real crux of the game here. The 5th cohort, so victorious up to this point. They've done stellar work, just like those earlier Scutari units. Stellar work, stellar work. Matter of fact, this unit took out the Army General, his guard unit, and I think 2 support units. So they were used to winning. So anyway, we get into this combat. The Romans win, but they also take enough damage to become shaken themselves. So both units again have to test. And well, here's another close-up view. I like this photo. I don't know why. I just really do. Here's another close-up. Oh yeah, here we go. I should have moved this one up low. This is the Roman ineffective. The Scorpion and the Javelin guys did absolutely nothing. Okay, so with both units shaken and everything, we have to. There's another view of the battlefield on this side. Gives you kind of a reference of where everyone is. All right. So the 5th, as you can tell down at the bottom, failed its break and fled. The Scutari that were fighting them, they also failed and broke. The Iberian cavalry that were supporting them gave ground in good order. So, yeah, that was enough damage that division that is on the Iberian far right, less all the allies coming onto the table, was down to just 1 unit. So it would have to break. And all you would have left really on the table that's a fighting force are the Allied troops on the table. So that brings us to the end of turn 4, and it was definitive. Both armies, I would call this, like on the screen, I call it a Pyrrhic victory for the Romans, only because their generals stayed alive. But if you look at the losses that they incurred, they lost the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 7th cohort. 5 out of the 7 cohorts are destroyed. They lost a Scorpion and some skirmishers, which is no big deal. But 5 out of 7 cohorts destroyed. But when you compare that to the Iberian losses, they lost their general, which I in this scenario, I like using the rebellious Iberian generals as not only just a general character on the table, he's kind of the focus of their rebellion and their resistance. Like in historical terms, that's exactly what they did. So with him dead and every other first level, what I call the leadership, your number 8s or number 7s, right under your general, they all died in combat. So you were down to 2nd and 3rd tier sub-commanders. So that would definitely break this army as a fighting force. And so in looking on it, how it fits into the next battle, because as I started this, I said the winning side, whatever's left, moves to support their friendly units in the next battle. Well, because this was such a Pyrrhic victory for the Romans, I mean, boy, when you look at the destruction that happened, yeah, they won, but would they have had enough left really to make it there of any value? And I really don't think so. So I rolled a dice to kind of, take my own bias out of it, and I rolled that they would not assist in the next battle. So there will be no help for either side in the next battle. So it's going to be a straight up fight. It's going to be on fairly rough terrain. It's going to be in the mountain passes. Um, but it's very vital for what comes after this in the campaign, because if the Iberians can keep these units of Romans out of Iberia, they won't be able to help and assist the forces that survived the last battle, and therefore be able to have a larger area of control. We're going to have to go back, and in the beginning, when I set this thing up, I'm going to have to roll to see how many of the provinces that the Romans have already occupied rebel. It's going to be very important, because if they lose this battle, so it's going to be -2 to whatever they roll, to whether they can maintain control over these provinces or not. So there's a lot to be done yet. And I know this video is taking a little bit longer, but this was really pivotal in this campaign. This one's going to set the tone for a while. So I appreciate you hanging in there. Listen to my very monotone voice. If you like this kind of thing, give it a thumbs up. If you have a comment, please leave it down below. Start a conversation if you want to. If you think I'm kind of wacky and way out there for doing this solo, let me know. Let me know what you think. But that's it. Everybody stay safe, stay well. I got the next battle on the table. I'm working through it. And I'll see you in about a week or so with a little bit of an update.